I jumped on YouTube and looked around a while, and I could not find, honestly, really a single video on how to travel across glaciers, recommending like where to go, what to look for. Everything I found was just how to rope up for a glacier or how to rescue yourself if you fall into a crevasse. I thought I'd make a video on how to actually look at a glacier and travel across it and kind of know where to go and where's safest. I basically have 4 rules of thumb. Number 1, know the anatomy of a glacier. Know how a glacier works and what's going on. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that, just show you some quick anatomy of the glacier. And then like to show you what I do to travel across it and how to be safe doing so. So a glacier, essentially, you want to think about it like a moving river of ice. A river flows from up high out of its source near the mountain and flows down to the ocean. One of the things you should pay attention to on glaciers are convex rolls. And it rolls over like that, and gets flat again. So this convex roll, what's happening is this top edge, the surface, is having to flex to get around this bend a lot more than the inside. What this creates is a cracking. So when a glacier goes over a convex roll, it's a lot like this piece of chocolate, where the top of the chocolate has to stretch more. Where the top of the chocolate has to stretch more. God. So the glacier behaves a lot like this delicious piece of candy here. So as the glacier moves over a convex roll, the bottom doesn't have to stretch as far as the top does, kind of like this. So what you're going to see is the top splits open first, like that, and creates crevasses. And the bottom, you can see no crevasses. So you have to be really careful when you're climbing up or heading down a convex roll. This is more than likely where the crevasses are forming in the glacier. So the second thing is doing your homework before you go. If you have satellite imagery, it's awesome if you can get online or get on that satellite imagery and pull up the glacier that you want to go to and look at the anatomy of the glacier, essentially. Figure out where the cracks are, where you want to be, and where you want to avoid. That way you know where you're going before you get there. Number 3, drink it blue, because you shouldn't be up there if it ain't blue. That's actually kind of my rule number 1. Check the weather before you go out. If it looks like anything's coming in, just don't mess with it. If it's a nice blue sky out, you can see where you're going well ahead of time. You can see all the cracks, crevasses, dips. You can see everything coming up ahead. If you go out there on the glacier and it's really flat light, the glacier starts blending in with the sky. You can't tell what's what, and then you go off a cliff or in an ice fall or in a crevasse. You get yourself in trouble. So go when the weather's nice. Number 4, have safety gear and know how to use it and have it on. When you fall in that crack and you get jammed in place, it's really hard to put a harness on when you're jammed in a crack. Or if you break your leg or whatever, just have the harness on and have all the gear that you need to rescue yourself right there on you. Anytime I ride a really long glacier, I usually bring my glacier gear. So I always wear my harness. That way if you go in a hole or something happens, you've got it on you. I always carry two ice screws. Most people just carry 1, but you can't climb out if you just have 1. If you have 2, you can set 1, use it to pull up with your hands, and set a bottom one so you can step on it to get up using slings. Speaking of slings, yeah, I carry plenty of slings and prussics. You carry an ascender, you get a rope. Usually I carry at least 30 meters. Carry snowshoes, it's always a good idea. And yeah, just go prepared. can hear it calving back there. I don't know if there's a route up and over this thing, but this is the route we're thinking about poking through on, so let's check it out. So here's some basic anatomy of a glacier. All these dark things are mountains, and here's your glacier coming down the valley, and another glacier here meeting it. And they both come together right here and join. The first thing obviously you look for in a glacier are crevasses. There's usually the easiest things to see, unless they're hidden in snow, of course, but this is your first sign to stay away from that side of the glacier if you see crevasses. So just look for cracks in the ice where you could fall into and stay away from them. They can be horizontal or lateral, any direction. The other thing I look for in glaciers are moulins. A moulin is basically a depression in the glacier where the water drains down into the glacier. So stay away from those. If you see anything that looks like a nice little low lake looking hole in the glacier, stay away. Usually towards the top where the glacier starts separating from the mountain, there's usually this thing called a bershund. It's this big horizontal crack, and be wary of those. You want to stay away. If you found an area where you want to go up, let's say you tried to go up right here away from the bershund, don't go slow. If you're on that sled, keep your speed going. That way if anything happens, you float over it. Got a little bit of a bershund. Yeah. So a bershund looks like this. So here's your glacier coming up, and kind of towards the head wall there's this big crack. Sometimes it's small, it looks like a couple feet. But if you fall in that crack, a lot of times it leads all the way down to the rock, the mountain, and then up under. The water kind of flows down under it. And this is how tarns are formed, like lakes on mountains. They're basically where a bershund used to be. And they'll kind of form right there, and water will puddle up under the glacier. So stay away from those. Those are dangerous, the bershands. Obviously, you want to try to stay where the snow looks deep and soft and white. All through here is where I'd travel on it, probably, if I was going to try to travel up the glacier. So another good thing to travel on in the glacier is moraine, if you can. So this is called the lateral moraine. It's on the very outside of the glacier, and it's where the glacier comes down the mountain and pushes all the rocks off to the side, and they start stacking up. So you get this almost like kind of a knife ridge looking feature. So if your glacier is right here, there's your glacier, and it's been pushing all the rocks off to the side, and they just start stacking. And a lot of times you can ride on top of the spine up the glacier. Just kind of follow that spine on up. One glacier comes down, pushes some rocks over. This glacier's coming down, pushes it over, and it just pushes all the rocks up in the middle. So a lot of times you can get on this little medium moraine right there in the middle and just drive up that in your snow machine, or travel on that. That's a little bit safer. Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah. And down in the bottom, you've got usually where the water drains from the glacier, there's kind of usually a little river or a creek right there down the side. So you got to be really careful. You want to try to stay out of that low saddle pocket that's right beside the glacier. It might be covered up with snow, but if you break through that, you're going to fall in this river or creek, and there's no telling how deep it is. So keep that in mind. Just try to avoid that area right in the edge of the glacier if you can. And sometimes you get a situation down near the toe of the glacier where the glacier drops into a lake or just into the snow below. A A lot of times you can, if the face looks too icy and chunky, sometimes off to the side where that lateral moraine is and the edge, you can work your way up onto that, and eventually that'll kind of lead you on to a safer part of the glacier where you can get on the glacier and start traveling. So that's another way to kind of look out around the toes to see if you can get on. But typically, if it looks really icy and really chunky across most of the glacier at the base, it's probably not super safe to get on that glacier anywhere near the base. So you just try to find another way around to it to access it. So there you go. There's Timmy's Glacier Snowmachine travel tips. Take them with a grain of salt. I'm not a glacier expert. I've taken some classes and spent a lot of time on them. This is how I've stayed safe in the mountains over the years. It makes you feel a little more confident going out, just knowing your surroundings and knowing what you're getting into. Even though you can't predict or see everything, obviously. It's impossible. Nobody can. But the best you can do is just prepare yourself with all the knowledge you can and try to be safe out there. And enjoy yourself. Have fun. That's what you're up there for. Thank you guys. We'll see you next time. If you like this video, subscribe. It just helps keep me on the road making these videos for you guys, so which I enjoy doing. So we'll see you guys next time. Peace.